This is my ranking of games like Age of Empires that I've played, based purely on my personal experience. Each one is placed from masterpiece to trash, depending on how deep the strategy is, how well base building and economy management work. Let's get straight into the list. Cossacks 3 is a real-time strategy game set during the 17th and 18th centuries, where players gather resources, build large towns, train massive armies, research upgrades, and command thousands of soldiers through historical battles using infantry, cavalry, artillery, and naval forces. Once I settled into the gameplay, I spent a lot of time expanding my economy before building huge armies for long battles. Choosing where to use my workers and resources always mattered because it affected how fast I could build my army for the next fight. Watching thousands of units clash across the battlefield looked great, and using cannons with cavalry attacks made victories much more satisfying. I also noticed that some matches became too dependent on huge groups of similar units, which reduced the tactical variety during longer games. I didn't let that issue bother me for long because building enormous armies kept me coming back. I place it in my good tier. Stronghold Definitive Edition is a real-time strategy game where players build medieval castles, manage food and resources, keep villagers happy, and defend powerful fortresses with walls, towers, archers, siege weapons, and carefully planned production chains during story missions and large battles. After spending time with it, I found it rewarding to design castles that stayed strong during heavy attacks while keeping my economy productive. I had to think about where every building belonged because a good layout made resource production much more efficient. Watching workers carry supplies around the castle made everything feel alive, and defending my walls with archers and siege weapons was always satisfying. The updated visuals look clean without changing what made the original special, and the modern controls made managing large castles much easier. I only wish the artificial intelligence had received bigger improvements because some battles felt predictable. This easily secures a place in my excellent tier. Ancestors' Legacy combines historical campaigns with squad-based real-time strategy, placing players in command of Viking, Anglo-Saxon, German, and Slav forces across medieval battlefields, where capturing settlements, managing resources, upgrading troops, and using terrain wisely decide the outcome of every mission. As I progressed through the campaign, I found myself planning attacks more carefully instead of rushing into every battle. Sneaking squads through tall grass, setting ambushes, and retreating wounded soldiers before they were wiped out made each victory much more satisfying. As my units became more experienced, protecting them became one of my biggest priorities in every mission. Managing food, wood, and metal while expanding my army kept each objective interesting without making things too complicated. My biggest issue was the restricted base building since many structures had fixed positions, leaving little room for creative planning. That drawback wasn't enough to keep Ancestors' Legacy out of my great tier. Northgard mixes real-time strategy with colony management, placing players in charge of a Viking clan that must gather resources, claim new territory, survive harsh winters, expand settlements, and achieve victory through military strength, trade, fame, knowledge, or several other paths. Once I understood how each system connected, I enjoyed balancing food, wood, happiness, and population while slowly growing my settlement. As I claimed new areas, I had to choose between expanding my resources, improving my defenses, or leaving space for future buildings. The clans all played in their own way, which kept matches interesting while the core gameplay stayed familiar. Winters constantly interrupted my plans, making resource management much more important than I expected. Some matches felt longer than necessary when I was waiting for resources or the right moment to act. But the strategic depth kept me interested. Northgard finds its place in my great tier. Manor Lords blends medieval city building with real-time strategy, challenging players to grow a small settlement into a thriving town through careful planning, realistic production chains, seasonal farming, regional trade, and tactical battles where every available villager can become part of the army. As I spent more time expanding my village, I found myself paying attention to every road, house, and workplace because even small changes improved how everything operated. I loved watching families handle daily jobs while the town slowly grew into a busy settlement that looked alive from every angle. Raising an army also carried real weight since every soldier came from my workforce making each battle an important decision instead of something I could do whenever I wanted. Taking things more slowly never felt like a problem because each success felt earned, and the historical detail always stood out. This stands proudly in my masterpiece tier. Godsworn is a fantasy real-time strategy game inspired by Baltic mythology, where players build settlements, gather resources, choose powerful gods, unlock new technologies, command unique armies, and use hero abilities to defeat enemies through story missions, skirmishes, and cooperative battles. As I spent more time learning each faction, I found that each god pushed me toward a new strategy rather than just giving units a new appearance. I had fun experimenting with powerful abilities, combining heroes with my army, and adjusting my strategy depending on the mission. Building my economy while preparing for larger fights reminded me of classic strategy games, but the modern controls made everything easier to manage. The game gave me lots of replay value by letting me tackle missions with different gods and tactics. Since the game was still growing, I noticed a few missing features and rough edges, but the strong gameplay kept me coming back for more. This deserves a place in my great tier. Against the Storm combines city building, real-time strategy, and roguelite progression, challenging players to establish settlements across dangerous wilderness, manage several fantasy races, survive relentless storms, uncover hidden glades, and make difficult choices that shape every settlement and future expedition. After learning how everything worked together, I found myself constantly adapting instead of relying on the same strategy every time. The settlement worked much better when I paid attention to the needs of each race instead of focusing on just one. Exploring dangerous glades always felt exciting since every discovery could either solve a problem or create a completely new one. Finishing one settlement gave me something useful for future runs, making the progress feel long-lasting. The more I played, the more strategies I discovered, which stopped the game from feeling the same all the time. Against the Storm easily claims a spot in my masterpiece tier. 8-Bit Hordes is a fantasy real-time strategy game where players collect resources, build bases, train armies, unlock stronger units, and battle across campaign missions and skirmishes using two rival factions with their own military strengths and special abilities. As I played through both campaigns, I had a great time growing my base and building stronger armies while learning which units work best in battle. The colorful visuals gave the battles plenty of personality, and experimenting with powerful creatures and special abilities kept the action entertaining. The map layouts made battles more interesting since I could attack from multiple directions instead of taking the same path. My biggest frustration came from the sudden difficulty spikes since some missions felt more dependent on overwhelming enemy numbers than better strategy. The limited controls and basic factions also stopped it from reaching the level of my favorite RTS games. I think 8-Bit Hordes can go into the good tier. Crown of Greed is a fantasy real-time strategy game where players build a kingdom, recruit independent heroes, expand their economy, place reward contracts, defend settlements, and restore a cursed realm by influencing loyal subjects instead of giving direct battlefield commands. As I learned how the systems work together, I realized success depended more on planning than controlling every fight myself. Instead of ordering heroes around, I had to place rewards on enemy camps and important locations, hoping the right heroes would take the job. That unusual approach made every mission feel different because I was constantly adapting to whatever my heroes decided to do. Managing gold, protecting tax collectors, and strengthening my town kept me busy while monsters continued attacking from every direction. At times, the pace became overwhelming because several problems demanded attention at once, but I still appreciated how different the gameplay felt from traditional RTS games. This finishes in my good tier. That's my personal ranking of games like Age of Empires. Some surprised me, some fell short, but every placement comes from my own experience with the genre. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.